Hi everyone, karibu sana to this session. We have our sign interpreter, we have our panelists, and my name is Melody from Initiative for Equality and Non-Discrimination. And I'm starting over the session because I want to introduce to you this amazing research that we did with Our Voices Count Consortium, consisting of Elite LBQ, INEND, and Kuya High from Nairobi, Udada Imara from Kisii, and as part of the consortium, we understood that there was a gap when it comes to economic justice for, especially as a part of larger LGBTQ plus community, especially for LBQ women and gender non-conforming persons. So I'll be sharing with you the research as we continue with this conversation. But an overview of the research, what some of the findings that we came about were, of course, and it's a fact that LGBTQ people in Kenya face discrimination and exclusion from economic justice, right? Economic opportunities, including employment, education, housing, and healthcare, right? And many LGBTQ individuals are forced to hide their identity, gender identity, orientation, to avoid this discrimination and violence that we encounter. Lack of legal protection, of course, we know about Repeal 162 and 165 case, which is ongoing. That is one of aspects that we face as a community too, because I mean, legally, we are constrained by that, right? And of course, as we talk about that, the access to economic justice plays a vital role in helping us as LGBTQ women and gender non-conforming persons to actually have freedom when it comes to, and rights when it comes to social economic. And inclusion of faith, universal inclusion in education, in skills development, and in housing is a very, very major constraint when it comes to that. Some of the percentages that after conducting this research, we discovered that around 68% of LGBTQ GSC persons that we conducted the survey with reported experiencing economic hardships, and due to their orientation, of course, and gender identity. 42% of the same reported being denied employment due to who they are, and 56% persons reported not having access to affordable healthcare. And to understand all this, economic justice it's multifaceted, and given those percentages, of course, and how we know our country is, it creates a dire situation for LGBTQ women, to be specific, and gender non-conforming persons, narrowing down avenues, whether for formal employment or entrepreneurship, and just finding economic justice. So the report had a few recommendations to the government and to the financial institutions and to LGBTQ GNC organizations. And that's why we are here today, because one of the recommendations was having information dissemination and forums like this, the one we are having, to just understand and create support system and to inform that, yes, this is ongoing, right? So our very good moderator, before they join, I will introduce the panelists who are here. Gina will be joining in as we continue to help co-moderate the session. So I will start by introducing our sign language interpreter. You can see them, their name is Damaris. Karibu Sana Damaris, and thank you for being here with us to assist us with people with disability and listening impairment. So I will introduce Yvonne Mudhoni. Hi, Mudhoni. Maybe you can just wave so that I can know who Yvonne Mudhoni is. Yvonne Mudhoni is a queer African feminist in Kenya, leading consultant for Open for Business. I think some of you have interacted with Mudhoni. I don't want to introduce you much to preempt your intro, right? So you introduce yourself at the other bit. And we have Karen Nancy, our very able financial inclusion facilitator, also a very good person when it comes to training. We involved them in our financial inclusion training, which was one of the recommendations. And we have Georgina, the lead coordinator from Voices of Women in Kenya from Kisumu. Hi, Georgina.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine. Maybe you can all introduce yourself in that order as we continue and say what to do.
I guess I start. Hi, everyone. As Melody said, my name is Yvonne Mudhoni, she, her. I work with an organization called Open for Business, which is an INGO that works to provide the business and economic case for LGBTQ inclusion. Our work primarily focuses on conducting research to provide the economic angle as to why LGBTQ inclusion is important for the society, why it's important as an economic issue and as a business issue. So my work primarily is with the private sector. I also sit on various boards, including AVAC and Professionals in Pride Kenya. And I've been in the movement for quite a while. And I'm impressed and happy to see the strides we've made, and also ready for the challenges as they come. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne, for that. Karen, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am Ajuan Karen, a capacity building consultant. I work with the women 18 and above to develop their career, business, and organizational goals. And apart from that, I'm also a child rights advocate, a violence against women activist, and a good governance expert. I'm also a writerpreneur, an ecopreneur. I'm more into circular economy, climate change, and I'm also a socialpreneur. Every business that I do it for the good of the society, not necessarily for profit. I've co-founded and founded several businesses that are currently running. And I also support women to run their businesses. So I'm in their board of advisory. And apart from that, I'm also a founder and a leader and a board of director of several community-based organizations that work with the youth, women, persons with disability in cross-cutting sector that address several sustainable development goals like hunger, eradicating poverty, climate action, and gender equality, as well as education. I have interacted with the social justice research report because I was contracted by the consortium, Our Voice Count organization, to conduct a training on financial inclusion, basically entrepreneurship, access to finance, as well as finance management. So the training took place in May, and about 55 LBQ and GC persons were trained. And I am glad to be here so that we can further interrogate the report and also find solutions or ways of enhancing our collective action towards accessing economic justice.
Amazing. Thank you, Karen, for that introduction. I can see Pinky has joined us. Pinky is from Udada Imara in Kisii. Udada Imara is part of the consortium too. I had lined up everyone to introduce themselves. Maybe Pinky, you can introduce yourself after Georgina. Hi, Georgina, please go ahead, introduce yourself. I'm giving you less than a minute to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Georgina Adhiambo. I'm the Director of Voices of Women in Western Kenya, an organization that works with lesbian, bisexual, and queer women in rural areas, which are more economically affected. We work on areas of health, socioeconomic, and ensuring a political well-being we work in. So VOEC is a member of Our Voices Count Consortium, and we were part of this research. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgina. Pinky, go ahead. Pinky, I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Hi everyone, my name is Pinky or Bosibori. I am from Kisii, an organization called Udada Imara. We are an LBQ organization that works in Kisii and Nyamira primarily, but we work in the entire Western Kenya in some of our projects. Our work revolves around health, safety and security, spirituality, parenting, and economic empowerment. So Udada Imara is also part of this consortium, Our Voices Count, and we took part in this research as well. I have also worked in the finance sector, in the microfinance industry and stuff like that. So I am here to have this conversation with you all. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Let's just dive in. So as part of the consortium, as I indicated, we did this research and just an overview of the current context in Kenya of what issues that we face and discrimination that we face. And I think I will start with order that I introduced you with. In what ways and services does our gender identity and sexual orientation really hinder us from, for example, accessing services that we should be accorded? I think we'll start that with Yvonne and then go to Nancy and then Georgina, then Pinky. Given, of course, we need to follow up with the legal aspect, the religious aspect of it, just an overview of how we are denied these services. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. I think when it comes to employment, of course, the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ GNC community is disproportionately discriminated from accessing employment, from accessing promotions at work, from accessing services such as health services and financial services. And some of those ways are through whether it's conscious or unconscious bias. That plays a major role, and especially for the GNC community and even just generally, the way you express your gender might be used to discriminate against you when you're applying for a job, or naturally, one of the ways in which, let's say, for example, if you're applying for a job at a company, the first thing is they look at your name, and the discrimination in Kenya starts from there. So imagine if you don't express in a way that society feels you should, then that continues to hinder and to limit your access to some services. Of course, also the background of just the mental aspect of it. You know, we've had situations where people have tried to access medical services, and it's been basically a show and tell within a hospital, where people have been called to look at this person who identifies like this, but, you know, this is what their ID says, or this is what we assume they are. So these are some of the ways in which I've seen the LBQGNC community being limited from accessing services that are rightfully theirs to access.
Thank you for that. Anybody else who has some addition to that?
Let me add on what Yvonne has said, especially about healthcare. And what I want to talk about is about insurance, where you find that same-sex partners, when one person wants to get an insurance, it is hard for them to include their partners in the insurance, in the coverage. So this also, it's some kind of discrimination, especially because these are partners. So if heterosexuals are allowed to include their partners in the insurance coverage, why not same sex? And most of the time, LBQGNC individuals may encounter healthcare professionals who are not knowledgeable or sensitive to their unique health needs. So they may be refused, these people may refuse to provide appropriate care, such as reproductive health services or even the hormone therapy, due to their personal biases or discrimination practices. And then also when it comes to employment, just like she mentioned, a lot of harassment and hostility that can impact on their professional growth and well-being. And when I read the report, there was something about housing also, where LBQGNC individuals may face discrimination when searching for housing. Some landlords or real estate agents may deny them housing based on their gender identity or sexual orientation. They might also face unequal treatment, such as high rental rates or even restrictive policies, which can limit their housing options. So basically, yeah, that's what I want to contribute regarding the services that are being denied LBQGNC persons.
Right, thank you. Georgina, Pinky, do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, I have something to add. I would also bring the context of services within financial institutions, where basically we start in the context of a woman. Finding women accessing credit within financial institutions is a problem because one, there is collateral being asked for, as in title deeds. If you don't have a title deed, if you don't have a logbook, you are not entitled. You might be having this at home, but they're not written in your name. I'm putting it in this context, bringing it to the aspect of LBQ. So as an LBQ who is living within the context of where their home is, cannot use the collateral the brothers use from the land to access any credit. So that discrimination culminates from the gender context, and then it comes to the sexual orientation of the person, and it even becomes worse, mostly on the masculine showing LBQGNC person. It becomes even harder for this community or for this population to access financial credit. So that is also an aspect that has a lot of discrimination. And I think that's why this research was done. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's go ahead. Pinky, this question is for you. The discriminatory policies and practices on accessing employment, which I think Yvonne touched on. How has that played out when it comes to, especially as Georgina said, masculine presenting women, for example, and gender non-conforming persons? Could you shed some light on that, given that as an LGBTQ person, I'm sure you've encountered some or have had stories of lived realities from the community in KC, for example? You are on mute, Pinky.
Okay, good. Every time I try to unmute, I'm like just doing whatever shenanigans I'm doing on my phone. Anyway, so the reality is like, you know, sometimes you're self-employed, sometimes you have a white collar job, sometimes you have a blue collar job, whatever it is. There's always this negative profiling, you know, like you start a business and when you're trying to get the business premises, you ask 1 million questions. The same way you go to get like a place to rent and everyone is asking you, where is your husband? And, you know, we don't rent this place with G, you know, like that. So even accessing the business premises is hard. And when it comes to like people who are into business, entrepreneurs, sometimes people do not want to work with you because they feel like, hey, why are you like that? You know, you're like that outcast person in that village or that town or that whatever place you're doing your business. So a lot of people don't give you business because, especially for mass presenting people, I tell people a lot that I am privileged because I'm very feminine. So I can gently blend into the society, but I know it's not the same for people who are masculine presenting and gender non-conforming persons. You get a job, and then sometimes they have this whole situation with the HR policy, you have to dress this way, you know, maybe there's a uniform at work and that uniform entails that you have to dress a certain way, which completely erases your personality, everything that you are, because for you to get that job, you have to dress a certain way. So it's either you give up on yourself and take the job, or you don't, because imagine going to work every day, 9 to 5, 8 to 5 in Kenya actually, for 5 days a week and expressing yourself as someone you're not. Like that is a lot of hours of your life that you know, you're just not being yourself, and it's very hard and excruciating for a lot of people. And the negative profiling still comes to work. You go for an interview in a suit and everyone is looking at you like, okay, the masculine suit. Everyone is looking at you like, Aya, what's wrong with you? Like, you're supposed to dress this way, because there's this whole societal expectation that there's a way you should behave, there's a way you should conduct yourself, there's a way you should present, and then you're presenting the opposite or something that does not align with what they expect. And immediately before you get that job, you are excluded, like the moment you walk through the door, you know. So a lot of these opportunities just pass people by.
Yeah, I hear you. And given this state of Kenya that we are in, Muthoni, Yvonne, there was a research that Open for Business had conducted earlier, and basically the contribution of larger economy, especially Kenyan economy, seeing that the state that we are in right now, we are in sort of a crisis. Maybe you could touch on how all this discrimination that we face as the larger community, and of course trickling down to LGBTQ persons, how that affects the economic and GDP of Kenya, the economic status and GDP of Kenya. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Thank you. I just want to touch on, because I think we've forgotten one main thing about accessibility. As I answer the question you've asked, accessibility comes from also how far you've gone with your education. And that in itself is very problematic within our community and within how our parents disown LBQ, GNC people, and it's very unfortunate because we live in a society that sometimes, to access some of the jobs that will build your economy, that will build your financial freedom, require you to have a certain level of education, like a university degree or at least a secondary education, and that is not accessible to some of our community members. And so, of course, your access is cut out from there. Because you've been kicked out of home, either because you were outed or you came out to your parents thinking it was a safe space, or you were bold enough, to say, listen, this is who I am, whether this is a safe space or not, I'm not going to pretend anymore because this is harming my my mental well-being and I'm not being authentic. But when it comes to the research that Open for Business did, we found that, of course, there is a loss in terms of money when you're talking about productivity, when you're talking about how the LGBTIQ people or LBQGNC people are discriminated against at work. Of course, if I'm not able to bring my most productive self to work, then I'm not able to perform better. Look at even within our communities, within our organizing, within our movements, within our organizations. When you're pissed at your boss, you're not productive. Therefore, you're not doing the best you can at work. So imagine being in a situation or in an environment where staff are not inclusive of you, or where there's negative rhetoric that when conversations around LGBTQ inclusion come up, and the rhetoric is so negative and so harmful, of course, you're not going to be productive. And so we conducted research, which is basically similar to what, when you calculate how much it costs a country if they're not gender inclusive. It's the same thing we did. We picked and borrowed from that. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We picked and borrowed from that, and we found that, of course, productivity is a big factor in how the country and the economy performs. Because at the end of the day, our countries are run through private sector, through the businesses that we have. And so when you're not productive enough, then you're not producing at peak levels. When you're not included within your spaces, whichever spaces you occupy, then you're not very productive. And some of these things are what lead us to even be lesser productive, because then you engage in things like drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and harder drug abuse. So you can see a trail of how productivity is harmed by the policies or the laws in which a country operates with. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. And I wish to highlight when we conducted this research, one of the participants mentioned they are a school teacher, and they mentioned what happened with XCS Magoha, and quote verbatim from the research was, because of the directive of CS Magoha, I have 2 students who have reached out. For one, I am planning to start the journey of helping them. That was at the moment, because they've already been sent out of school and they were to sit for KCSE. So the fact that already are in schools, in our schools, that comes about, they are expelled, and then that happens that they cannot further their education. So of course they won't be able to build themselves up for the society. And of course we are very education-oriented society, that you have to be educated to get certain jobs. And that brings me to the entrepreneurship part of it, because most of us, if, as you've said, we are unable to get employment, for example, we run to entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship has its ups and downs, right? However, I would wish for, I don't know if Pinky, you can take this, how that has panned out, Georgina too, like how that has panned out from the community within which you operate in Kisumu and Kisii. And if Nancy, you can contribute to that, given that you are a social entrepreneur too, maybe you can fit into that sector.
Okay, I can start. Looking at the context of the entrepreneurship angle, we're looking at we are now looking at the context that is even controversial in Kenya now, the finance bill. Yeah. When you look at the finance bill, we have on turnover tax on clause 9 and 24B of the finance bill, which proposes a turnover tax of 3%. So it means if you're having a kiosk that is selling mandazi and tea, at the end of the day, you have made 1,000, and this 3% has been brought down to a threshold of 1,307. Yeah. So it means if you have that kiosk and you've made a turnover, not even take home, a turnover, not even profit, a turnover take home of 1,307, you're going to pay 3% of that amount.
It's 13 hours.
It is not a profit. Meaning this kiosk, you'll be paying the government whether you make profit or not, as long as you have attained 1,370 shillings in a day. Yeah. So that means as much as most of the LBQ who were disadvantaged to get education, now we are going into entrepreneurship, are going to be more affected with the bill. So it means as much as we are working toward through the research on how we can increase the skills and also try to motivate our members towards this, but we have a finance bill that is going to shatter all this down. So might be that is what you get in a day. So it means in a year, you're going to pay 15,000 Kenya shillings. Not even a profit, meaning you're not even going to save. Yeah. Your work is to work for the government. You do this, it is tax, and that is all. So meaning there is no saving and there is nothing. And then when we come to that entrepreneurship context also, we are going to the clause 17, the chama. That is also another way that as LBQ, we also try to get money, finance them. This clause says that chamas, that money that you get at the end of the year is deducted 30%. So it means you're not going to save. You're getting that money and it's being deducted 30%. So as much as we are doing all this, but we have a monster that is killing this context that we are working on. So it means how do we, as much as we are looking at the entrepreneurship, the gaps, also what is hindering, this finance bill is hindering most of the LBQ, GNC persons, entrepreneurship, savings and all that. Because even if you look at even the organizations that are here, we have the house levy. If you look at the tax return, when you get the receipt, kuna mali imeandikwa NITA. Do you know how NITA, why you're paying NITA? You don't know. So it means that housing levy, it will be put into the income tax, then you will be paying the housing levy. So it will be part of the returns that you will be giving KRA. So everything is killing us as much as we are already dead halfway, but we are looking at it. How do we look at this thing? It is death. Thank you.
Thank you, Justina, for shedding light on that. Yvonne, do you have anything to add on this looming finance bill that's killing us at the moment, as much as we are on this side being discriminated?
Yes, I mean, we should be very angry at the finance bill, of course, and in whichever ways we can, we should, for me, I personally think that we should try and highlight how this bill is so harmful to our economy and to individuals. and of course to the LBQ GNC community that is disproportionately discriminated against in all aspects of our inherent rights. It's a bill that seeks to tax the poor, but provides tax reductions for the rich. So for example, when you tell me you're trying to collect money for a housing program, yet you don't want to tax the choppers and helicopters, there's only a very small percentage of people who import choppers in this country, right? Because they're the rich. But then that tax from one chopper is a lot of money. So why are you not taxing these things that should be taxed? Why are you not taxing, why are you reducing tax for, let's say, global businesses and global companies? So this bill for me does not make any sense. And just to pick an example that I saw the other day, actually 2 examples. So let's say you earn 50,000. I saw an example on the Nation media that showed how if you earn 50,000, from all these deductions, you remain with about 29,000 to survive on. 29,000 in this economy. You already there's people who don't even earn that 29,000. And for those who do earn that 50,000, and for those who can get that 29,000 out after tax, that is not enough. It might not be enough money to be able to do the things that you want to do, to be able to grow economically. Then, of course, the major part of this finance bill is of course, it's this house tax, the 1.5 now. So someone did an analysis of how long it would take for a mama mboga to own a home. So if it was at 3%, it would take a mama mboga 73 years to own a home. It's now been reduced to about 1.5%. How many years will it take for this mama mboga to get a house? And is this really accessible? Is this accessible to people with disabilities who sometimes are locked out of work and depend on what I think it's Karen who was talking about, you know, your kiosk and earning 1,350, I think you said. How accessible is this? What are we saying to people who earn such little money that even 0.1% is too much to deduct? Now, you as an LBQ GNC person who is treated like this is not your country and that your ancestors did not fight for independence of this nation, if certain bills that are in parliament, let's say if the family protection bill passes, how many years will it take after contributing to the housing levy for you to own a home? You know, first of all, you might not be able to access work because of course this bill limits that access. But if you are able to access work, how many years does it take? And then after you've contributed all that money, then some homophobe comes from wherever they're coming to either, you know, burn down your house or to, you know, mob justice acts against you because of how you present or because you're queer or you're LBQ or GNC. How is this bill protecting your investment? It doesn't. There's no security with this bill, especially for the LBQ GNC, because it's so easy for us to be evicted from our homes because of who we are. It's also so easy for anyone. I mean, it's very problematic. It's very problematic. So be angry about it because it doesn't protect you in any way. It doesn't protect your investment. And generally, we don't even trust that this money is going anywhere. And that is why there's such an up. I mean, some of these things might be okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should tax here, but we don't even trust our government to use the money in a way. Why are you not collecting tax? Why don't you make tax collection efficient so that you're able to get the money you're supposed to get out of debt? Why
And
don't
just-
make processes efficient? So yeah.
And also, Melody,
Yes,
just on that, on the same bill, we have clause 24B, section 5, which also proposes VAT on marketing and promotion, where if you're a DJ when you're paid that little amount, a DJ and MC, 5% withholding tax will be taken. So imagine that small amount you're making, it's still being taxed. Yeah. And if you're doing entrepreneurship, you're able to have a kiosk or even transport something. If VAT on fuel is 16%, the whole thing is going to be, and it's going to be a deathbed, because the cost of life is going to shoot up. So the bill is affecting us as much as we have a lot of issues that we are looking at, but this bill is adding salt to India. Thank you.
I agree. And Karen, are you speaking?
Yeah, maybe let me add to, the government has an ambitious budget of Kenya shillings 3.6 trillion for the year 2023 and 2024. So they are adamant to expand their tax base, however much we protest. Somebody once said that corruption starts at the budget stage, because that is where they allocate money that they are going to steal. They include it there in the budget, just like the famous Uhuru's Miss what? There's something that he read some figures and he said that it was an error. So the corruption starts at that point, and that is why we are seeing a very ridiculous finance bill that is going to be tabled tomorrow, I think today or tomorrow in Parliament. Today. And it's today. So let's just hope that even as much as they are saying that they are going to, it's going to pass. It's a given. It's going to be passed. Let's hope that the citizenry is going to be angry enough to say no, to say enough is enough. Punda imechoka, because the consequences that we are going to live with is enormous. So let's just hope that even if they pass it, the citizenry will rise up and reject anything about that bill.
I hope
Melody,
so. And yes.
Let me just, when a company is going through financial difficulties, a company will not reduce your salary. They remove the redundant positions. So this government should first start by removing those redundant positions and paying ghost workers, instead of coming to tell us that we need money and this is the way to do it. This is not the way. This is harmful to our economy.
I
Right?
agree. And I hope we are mad enough and we are angry enough, because already we are facing exclusion as a minority, sexual and gender minority community. I hope we are mad enough and we get to participate in some of these things, because you see, you cannot be included unless you proactively participate. And now this brings me to this aspect of how are we accessing funds? Are we able to access funds? For example, I'm quoting from one of the interviews that we had with focus group discussion, a person from, I remember from Pusia, and they said, a masculine presenting LBQ person will be discriminated against instantly in an attempt to access banking loans and even banking facilities. Activities as simple as opening bank accounts were reported as difficult for LBQ Gen Z persons, which is an issue pervaded by the binary categorization of gender during the application process. An application form asking on one to name themselves either male or female. If one is lucky, they may have option to prefer not to say, but most of these premises, especially physical premises, once you enter the bank, the perception, as you said, Yvonne, I remember you mentioned earlier, the perception already shuts you out. The perception that as you cannot have a partner that is same sex already sets in. Nancy, kindly talk about how we can be able at least to access these facilities and loans and get ourselves, equip ourselves for this entrepreneurial processes towards our economic empowerment.
Yeah, thank you, Melody. Before Kibaki era, there was a category of people that could not access banking facilities. They were called the unbankable. So Mwangi of Equity started Equity and changed the paradigm shift completely, because these are the banks that were asking for a deposit of 5,000 when you open a bank account. this why even closing now? For example, and a good example is Barclays Bank that has now rebranded to ABSA. So I know that one day LBQ, GNC persons, as much as there's a lot of discrimination and bias that they encounter when they interact with banks and financial institutions, simply because of the prejudice based on sexual orientation or even the gender identity. So they're being denied services. Some can't even open a bank account because when you look at the form where you need to identify yourself, which gender you are, most banks have not embraced the third gender or the gender that option that I prefer not to say. Or so a gender non-conforming person finds it very difficult to answer that question. So sometimes they decide not to even open a bank account. And also, and this is an equal treatment during financial transactions. And in Kenya, because of the Kenya legal environment is also impacting on the LBQ GNC individuals, especially because of the criminalization of same-sex under Section 162 of the Penal Code that really creates a climate of stigma, fear, and even potential discrimination, which can influence interactions with banking services. And also, just like I've said about the gender identity, especially for gender non-conforming persons, where their identity is different from the name, what is on their identity card is different from their identity, physical identity, and this can lead to challenges and even discomfort during identity verification processes. And we also lack LGBTQ plus inclusive policies. And most banks do not have guidelines on such policies. And this means that their employees they have a lot of lack of awareness and sensitivity towards unique needs and concerns of LBQ and GNC individuals. And therefore, this impedes their ability to access financing. And when it comes to maintaining confidentiality and even privacy, there's a lot of concerns about that, because there's a challenge that the banking staff may decide to disclose the identities of the LBQ GNC persons who have come to seek financial advice or service. And finally, LBQ GNC individuals face economic marginalization, which limits their access to financial resources. This is already entrenched in employment, where they have limited job opportunities. They are socially excluded, so they don't have a stable income, or rather financial muscle. So this also, because most of the requirements to access even finance is, especially loans, are you able to pay? Do you have a repayment plan? And when LGBTQ GNC persons cannot even get employment or start businesses, they can't even access this. So as I was saying, during the pre-Mwai Kibaki era, where the unbankable were not being taken care of, I envisage a world in future where the LGBT organizations can come together to address these challenges, especially by maybe starting a bank or a financial institution, not necessarily a bank, even the insurance and any other financial services that really focuses on LBQ people.
Amazing. Amazing. Once a bank, we should start our own bank and banking system, right?
Wow.
But really thinking your hand is up. You're on mute.
Every time, every single time. That's what I do. Anyway, I'm just still there thinking about the unbankable, and I'm like, hey, okay, now. So I'm just gonna circle back a little bit. We're talking about the financial bill, and I'm going to support what Mudoni had said earlier, like the lack of information. Like, let's leave education first. The lack of information is like massive, because how many people in our community right now know even the contents of that bill?
Not so many.
Exactly. Like, we do not do the whole public participation thing. Like, sometimes we don't even know what is going in the country, because the government is our enemy and we are the enemy of the people. So just leave us out of that. And that is something we need to start changing in the first place. Like, we are Kenyan citizens like any other person, and we deserve to know what is going on in our country. And we also need to have a say in it, something we do not do a lot, because we just feel marginalized in a way that we start to self-stigmatize ourselves a lot. Okay, and as Karen was just saying, like, everything is a security threat, like you thinking about walking into a bank just to expose yourself out there in the open, like, that is already a red flag for you. So you're like, hey, I won't go, like, I will just stay back here. And then working in the finance industry, the thing is, a lot of banks, they work with businesses and civil servants, like those big corporations. And, like, I'm going to loan you because you have a name for yourself, you have a brand out there. And then there's this you who's a common mwananchi, with very, very minimal security. You're not going to access a loan or anything from there. So we resort to what? The microfinance industry, or like Mashailo, like small scale, those people who fund SMEs and the like. And when you get there, first of all, do you have a guarantor? Where are you going to get the guarantor if your parents have already disowned you and your family does not want anything to do with you? How are you going to list a spouse as someone who's your guarantor, number one, before you go to those G10 number 15 guarantors that they want over there? Like, you cannot list your partner of, like, either as someone who can guarantee you for that loan. You cannot start a business together. You cannot invest together. You cannot acquire property together. That is like a whole lot of places where that exclusion comes in. And just as I said, the same information we do not have as on this finance bill, a lot of people do not even know how to manage their own personal money, or even have any idea how to start a business or where to get a loan. And when you've done all that, the capital becomes the problem. Because me, if I go out there already, I am being profiled and I am causing security issues to myself. So I'm just gonna stay home and be like, if I die, But that is something we actually need to change. Yeah. Thank you, Melody.
That's a very sad state of affairs. Now that we've talked about all this, how can us as LGBTQ Gen Z persons and LGBTQ community in large enhance our skills, our capacity in general to navigate around this economic systems just to overcome this barrier? I think we can start with Karen and then Muthoni, and then if you have any input, you can add to that.
Can you repeat, Melody?
As LGBTQ Gen Z individuals, yes, how can we enhance our skills, our capacity in general, just to be able to navigate this economic crisis and state that we are in? Because I know most of us are not, do not have maybe the skills, as Pinky has said, for example, to apply for a loan. We do not know how to manage our personal finances. We do not operate on our own personal budget. And I know, Karen, that you took us through this how to do personal budgets and avoid drifting here there with the money that we don't have, and we get loans from Mshwari and all this Tala and whatnot, and then it becomes a problem, but we still have to live and exist. How can we enhance our skills and our capacity at that?
Thank you, Melody. I think the first thing, the one priority thing that we all need to do as persons who are marginalized or in minority. One of them is self-awareness. We need to have embraced our own emotional intelligence by being aware of who we are first. When we are aware of who we are, it is easier for us to take care of our health, our well-being, and also our personal development. And personal development means it doesn't have to be formal education. It can be as informal as it's possible. Even reading just for 1 hour a day, any topic, any material enhances. You develop that habit of reading every day. A habit, an activity becomes a habit after 30 days of doing it continuously. Just 1 hour of reading any material, just like we are religiously on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, we can also inculcate that culture of self-development where we learn, we have that hunger to satisfy our curiosity and learn as much as possible and internalize what we learn, conceptualize what we learn, and practice what we learn. And once you do that, it is easier now to go out there in the world, to develop the confidence to face the world and go for what you want. Another aspect that we need to look into is our health. Most people are depressed. Most people are stressed, especially now with the current economic situation, global, it's not even Kenya alone. So we worry a lot, we sleep, we don't even sleep because we are worried about the debts we owe, the things that we cannot buy, the food we didn't eat, the people we can't support. And this, like it's normally said, only take care of things that you have control over. Anything that you do not have control over, forget about it. Live in the present so that you can have an equilibrium in your emotional well-being and even your health. And thirdly, as I normally say, leverage on your environment. Just like I mentioned in my classes, the OPTs, the OPWs, so use other people's time, use other people's experiences, use other people's work ideas, use other people's money so that you can develop. Climb on the shoulders of the giants before you. Look for mentors, look for people that are better than you so that you can do things that can make you be better than them. So, and then when it comes to money, money is here to stay. You are born, you found money, you will die, you will leave money. Money is not your age mate. Just manage what you can. Manage what you can. Use money that is within your means. Don't use other people's money, and especially when you don't know how you are going to pay them back, unless you are a thief, you want to organize money heist. So basically that's what I would advise, especially LBQGNC persons to do. And apart from that, there are also very many LBQGNC individuals need to come together, form agencies. I am glad that we already have organizations that support LBQGNC or even LBQGNC led that are really looking into the well-being of LBQGNCs. Let us come together and work with CSOs and activists and other stakeholders that are working towards economic justice for LBQGNC individuals so that we can maximize their impact and create long-lasting solutions and change. So, yeah, that's basically what I would advise.
Umekaita tuishi soft life. Yvonne, do you have any additional that we can, like, sustainable solutions and recommendations that we can empower or actually acquire for ourselves in this economic status?
I mean, I like that Karen has mentioned skill development, education and skill development. And I think that's really important because there are free courses that Google offers. And it depends on what you want to do and what skill set you want to improve. So whether if it's IT, there's free courses on Google, there's free courses online. If it's let's say program management, or not program, but project management. Let's say you want to manage the construction of something, there are free courses online. There's the School of YouTube. If it's a DIY, which it's self-employment, there's a lot of YouTube videos. So just invest in building your skills. If there's a hobby you have that you can turn into a skill, check online, check on YouTube. Like, there's an app that I like that I think assesses how much time you're spending on social media. I can't remember what app it was. So if you can, focus, and half of that time or a quarter of that time, because we spend a lot of time on social media, a quarter of that time just dedicated to building a skill, to learning something. And it's entertaining, watching Modoni on YouTube doing her DIYs. She's constructing her house in Limuru, or renovating her house in Limuru, all by herself, one single woman, all by herself. It's interesting for me. It's interesting to learn how to build some of these skills. But then also there's things like there's online jobs that remote jobs that you can also try and apply for, try and learn the skill set that those online platforms require, just so that you don't have to be employed by someone who, you don't have to put yourself through an interview process where someone might be biased against you because of your gender expression or your gender identity or your sexual orientation. I think the other thing is there's some strength in the chamas for those who are able to contribute. There's strength in chamas, whether it's a merry-go-round chama or a table banking. There is strength in that. There are apps that even provide interest if you save through those apps. And they're legit apps. I know, trust is a big issue in this country. Money and trust do not align, but they're good certified apps that you can use that can help you what is it called? Gain interest on your savings. And when you put a pot of money together, the more money you have, the more money you put together as a group, whether you're contributing 200, 150, it doesn't matter. It's good to gain that interest. If you're gaining that 5 bob, it's 5 bob you didn't have. So don't dismiss it. It's 5 bob that can continue to compound, what we call compounding interest. So invest in such things. Invest in things like money market funds, because those are tools also that can help your money grow, help your money work for you. And don't be discouraged by, Kitambo, they used to tell us you have to have like 500,000 to open a money market fund. You can have as little as 100. Look for a nice, good company that is giving you a good return on investment and invest in that. So there are different avenues to be able to break some of these barriers. And of course, I mean, I wish we could start a bank by ourselves. I would join that bank.
We should.
But yeah.
We should.
Yeah, we should. It's not impossible. But also, sorry, also just advocate for that policy change. Advocate for, when a bank is telling you that, we can't give you a loan, what are the reasons? Tell me now, like, give me a reason as to why I'm not advocate. That is a form of advocacy. It doesn't have to be through INEND or through Open for Business or GALC. GALC Plus. It doesn't have to be. Advocate for some of these things, even just by yourself, just by denying, just by refusing to be, to be denied access to some of these services when and if you can, because not everyone has the capacity or the mental strength to do some of these things.
I agree. And Georgina mentioned some time back that she's very vocal when it comes to this thing. So you cannot deny her a service that she knows that she rightfully has access to. And as you've said, saving, you can save, but saving with a plan, saving with purpose, not just letting your money sit there in the savings without having interest, without compounding, saving with the plan. You know, I always say, if you're saving the money, it loses value at the end of the day, as we've seen. Right now, the dollar is around 140, right? So, Georgina, as an advocate, very vocal advocate of yourself, you raise your hand.
I think I would start by just your question. I would go directly into you as a person, as an LBQ. What are the fears you have to access this credit facility? That fear of the unknown. How do we, as organizations that are working with LBQ, GNC persons, because some of us are working with rural LBQ persons who can't access some of these apps that support money markets. But how do we ensure, as organizations, how do we ensure that we build the skill through self-advocacy? We try and bring the self-esteem in a way that someone can easily fight for their rights. Because you look at it in this perspective. You have a bank account, you have money in your bank. Looking at Kenya now, when you transfer this money, because there is that mobile transfer, that money is being deducted in the bank. When you transfer it to M-Pesa, that transfer is being deducted. When it reaches your phone, for it to go to whatever transactions you're going to use, it is also being deducted. So if you look at it, it is triple deduction. So how do we, as much as we are looking into getting into savings, joining the bank account, as Yvonne had said, what policies do we need to look into? How do we also contribute to this finance bill? This finance bill is not for, we cannot say that we cannot access this. It is being dissected every day in even local media. Yeah, they have dissected it in even local media. So meaning we have also to change our habits on issues of learning. We need to learn. Yeah, let us not be in a position that we have people who should tell us to learn. As LBQ, GNC, Toyo, let us remove that and let us fight for ourselves. Have that self-confidence, have that self-esteem. It starts from you, because I will give you all the skills, but you're just there because might be you want some reimbursement, and then you don't implement what I've taught you. So everything starts with you as a person. Yeah, do you want to move on, or do you want to stay where you are? Because we cannot be preaching one thing every day. It is an aspect of self-acceptance and moving on. I need to work hard or to move on from this space to another space. So I think self-advocacy and fear of removing that fear of the unknown, that I cannot do this. Yeah. How many mama mbogas? Someone just said, ameka tu uko kwa mtaa. She just cut. Even a man, you even find a man cutting vegetables. Yeah. And it is known as, the name is Mama Mboga. Yeah. But this is a guy who has gone against all odds to come and cut, to be in a kiosk, to cut the vegetables to sell. So the person has said, I need to look for my financial stability through this. despite what people are thinking about me. This is my life. I need to live it. I think that's what we need to start with. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Pinky.
Okay. After Georgina has spoken, I do not have a lot to say, but I was saying what everyone has said. The only point I'm adding, like I'm copy pasting, and then I'm adding this point, like your sexual orientation or gender identity should not be your definition. Like that is not your whole identity, you know. Like you can amount to anything. Just do not like live in that cocoon of this is who I am. So that is the start and finish and the end of myself. Like you're just like any other Kenyan citizen. You can access whatever services you want. You can be whoever you want to be. Just remember that you're everything else. And that is just like a little small portion or part about yourself. So if you think that way, then you're going to go places. Because I think a lot of us have that victim mentality of we are marginalized. Yes, it's true, we are a lot even, but it should not stop us from trying to do better. You know, that is the beginning. We should do better. Every day we should do better in our financial management with our own money in the first place before we go anywhere. Like you can do better. Don't let gay be your whole identity. Like you can be everything, can be anything you want to be. So for us CSOs, I think, of course, information is needed. We can't bury our heads in the sand forever and assume that people know these things. They don't. So you need to start somewhere and make sure that our people know what they need to do. Like they have the information on the services they need to access, on ways to build themselves financially, on which skills they need to, like all that resources and information, you need to make it available and encourage them to get the information and use that information. And then once we do, then you have that, I would say mutual learning. Like, for example, if VOEC is doing something in Kisumu, we've done something in Kisii, and then you can exchange notes and say, like, this is working for us in Kisii. I know we are a rural setting and you're not urban, but like, what can you learn from what we are doing and what can we learn from what you are doing? So that, because the truth is, even in the entire movement, the LGBTQ Gen Z community is always left behind. Anything that is done in this country, first we are left behind as a community because the government or everyone else in Kenya feels like we are not good enough. And then now, even us as LGBTQ persons, we are even left more behind, you know, because I don't know, many factors. I'm not gonna get into those. So the fact that we are should also mean that we can do that for ourselves instead of sitting here and feeling sorry for ourselves. We can find ways of empowering our members, our beneficiaries, our constituents, to get this information on entrepreneurship, on financial literacy and personal money management. And then once we do everything that we learn, we share with each other so that we can, that cross-learning thing, you know, I am very, very much about that. And then, you know what, the goal is financial freedom, yeah? Because the truth is, in this country of ours, where like being LGBTQI plus is not necessarily illegal, but then like you can be gay, but you can't have gay sex. Anyway, I won't get into the politics of that. But what I'm saying is the goal is financial freedom. And the moment you are more financially stable, you can maneuver life better than someone who isn't. Whether we like it or not, that is the reality. Because if I can afford to live in Runda, I'm going to be more comfortable than someone who lives in Madare or Buruma, for example, because they face more challenges than I am going to do. So the goal is financial freedom. So find ways and means to get Usibe lakini, don't go rob a bank or whatever. Just saying, like, wherever you are, it's not the end. You can just start today, tomorrow. Easy advice zote zenye tumekupatia. Like, don't feel like that identity of yours is everything or it's the end or the whatever. Just think, this is me. I am a wholesome person. I'm multifaceted. I have so many things going on for myself and my sexual orientation, gender identity, sex characteristics, and whatever. This is just like a small portion of me, but I am someone who can be anything else in the world, just like anyone. Yeah.
Not limited.
Thank you, Melody.
Thank you for giving us the perspective of being not limited, right? for now, I wish to take questions and maybe some comments from the chat. And I've seen one person asking how we can handle black tax when we are trying to save and invest and make a future for ourselves. Anybody wish to take that?
Let me try. I started working when I was 21 years, and I used to have a supervisor who used to tell me, stop giving your parents money. And I was protesting, how can I stop giving my parents money when all along I've been longing to get a job so that I can give my parents money. In fact, I think my whole salary, my first month's salary, I gave them, and then they gave me some pocket money because I was staying with them. I had not left their house. But right now, I give people a different idea. I tell people, stop giving your parents money. Black tax is a guilt weighing. It's a guilt weighing phenomenon that relatives use to milk you dry. And then when you leave your job or when you retire and you have nothing to show of your hard work during all those years you've been working, the same relatives are the ones who are going to laugh at you and tell everyone how you misused your money. So don't feel guilty about not giving. Give what you can, especially the 10%. That 10% that the Bible talks about, that is what you should be giving your, not a pastor somewhere. That is what you should be giving your relatives. That is a tithe. Then I normally tell youth that when you start working, and because you don't have a lot of responsibility weighing down on you, save 50%. Save it in ZACO, save it in, give it to the government, open an account with central bank, and save that money so that when it reaches the minimum amount that the government normally borrows from individuals, like 50,000 or 100,000, with good interest, then give the government the money to do their projects. That would be a good return than giving your relatives money. So my advice is relax about black tax. Is just that, black tax, and it is a tax worse than Ruto's introduced tax in the financial bill 2023. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty. Be mean. I used to have an auntie, I think she still says that, to be mean is to be rich. And that auntie of mine has projects. Right now she can retire because to be mean is to be rich. She decided to develop herself, and those relatives didn't die. We didn't die because she didn't give us. So your relatives are not going to die because you don't give them money. They are still going to thrive. They're even going to thrive better than you because now you are not enabling their dependency syndrome on you. So black tax, no. Don't feel guilty. Develop yourself first, save what you can, invest. And then once you invest and you can multiply your wealth, then now you can share your abundance with the rest of the world, not just your relatives alone.
Yeah, I agree. I saw one of the interview with Michelle Obama was saying sometimes we task the rich relative and as Black persons and persons of color, we don't get to create wealth because we're giving before we even establish ourselves. But at the same time, family is tricky. And then I'm thinking about it this way. Because most families are dependent and some of us have not yet come out and some of us have come out, and then by the process of it, you get its own. But when you are wealthy, the family tends to not disown you, right? But at the same time, it's very detrimental. And I know it's detrimental to a point whereby they only see you as a bank, a central bank, so to say. And there's this one question and query and comment that's coming up on our chat, talking about mental wellness and mental health as a community. how that interlinks with our economic outputs and even the access and exclusion of it all. Anybody wish to take that, the mental wellness? Maybe Pinky, you could go ahead in terms of, yes, go ahead, Pinky.
Thank you, Melody. I had a comment from the earlier conversation. Hey. So the truth is, like, we literally buy our freedom, you know. You have money, so central bank, it is, and by the way, we have a central bank in Kisii, so you guys just know we have money. Anyway, I was just gonna add that I think also another way to deal with black tax is to create boundaries that are not porous. I know I'm someone who's preaching water and drinking wine, but yeah, you can create boundaries. Like, I can give you money when I have, but it's not like my responsibility. It's like you feel guilty for being born and being alive, and you have to pay and buy your freedom so that they accept you, you know. So those boundaries, let's work on them together, you guys. And then in this next generation, that whatever, I don't know kama ni generation Z ama sisi wenye tuko X ama ni huko nyuma nyuma wa Kongo tunajijua, whatever generation we are raising next, like when you give birth to a child, it's not your child's responsibility to take care of their siblings. Those are your children. Yeah, you know, like I always tell my friends when they are firstborns that they are deputy parents. You know, you can't do anything for yourself until the last born in your family has established themselves. So how long does that take? I don't know if it was Karen who gave us a whole estimate about how whatever, forever, or it was Georgina, whatever it takes for you to establish yourself because you have to do this. Then that black tax thing, I think it just adds the number of years because you have to take care of your siblings and your parents and everyone else in your family. You know, so when it comes to mental health, like for you to be a wholesome human being, there are many aspects of health that are considered, and mental health is one of those. And with the current economic status, like, do you even sleep? I know we talked about not sleeping at all because you're worrying about everything. And there's even these people on social media and TikTok, like rent money, tax money, all this. You sleep this way. The moment you wake up the next day, bread was 40 bob. The next day it is 100 shillings. And you're like, hey, I am really trying to up my income, but everything else is multiplying by the expenses. So like on top of the whole discrimination that you're facing and the homophobia and the exclusion, we still have to deal with money. Sasa, maybe I'm just gonna make one comment. I think one of the things that this whole economic crisis has caused is something I like to call homosexuality. People call it that way. Like, I'm gonna live with you because you can provide for me. Yeah. And so a lot of us live with partners that we are not very okay with. Like sometimes that relationship has ended many, many months ago, but you're still there because where are you going? You can't survive on yourself. You can't go back home because no one wants you there. So you're just gonna stay in this relationship for as long as it takes because this person is taking care of you. And that in itself causes a lot of distress to people. Like, apart from everything else, that's just my comment for now. Let Yvonne speak first and then I'll continue.
I think I want to just touch on the black tax. Sometimes it's easier said than done to ignore requests for money from our parents and people we care about. But one of the things I've found helpful for me, because, you know, thankfully I'm in a position where I can give my mom some money. So I have a strict budget. And I basically asked her, how much do you need? And I have a very strict budget, and there is nothing in the world that would make me move away from that budget. So every month when I'm paid, there's X amount of money that goes there so that it's in my head and I know that either I need to work for it. Kama hakuna, if there's no money, there's no money at all. Like, there's no money. But when there's a strict budget. If it's, let's say, 1,000 bob per month, that is it. In the middle of the month, when you come and say, oh, nimeishwa na skari, nipatie 200, there's nothing like that because it has to be budgeted. So that's how I handle such requests for, that's how I handle black tax. so to speak. So when you're in a position to be able to give money, then it's good to also just budget for it and have it in your budget. Then, you know, there's no emergencies and such things. When emergencies come, they can add on to whatever you're already giving them.
Amazing. I can see Pinky's hand is up. We are like 7 minutes towards the end of the webinar. I'm trying to hasten up. Maybe we can take one question from who is this? Sela Babu. Sela Babu, maybe you can take one question from you, and as we conclude this, Sela, you can speak.
Melody, the hand was from before. I don't know how to lower it because I can't from my phone. But anyway, yeah, that is from before.
Hi, Sela.
Hi, my name is Stella. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for this session. Sorry, I couldn't make it earlier. I was in class. So I'm a secondary school teacher, and I run a foundation for queers in non-queer workspaces. It's called Working Under the Rainbow. And one of our thematic areas is mental health for queers in workspaces, like, you know, teachers, the mamambogas, we have police officers, we have doctors, and all that. So it will be my wish that for future discussions on this, that this can be taken into consideration, that we have an organization that is already looking into mental health for queers in non-queer workspaces. And another thing that we also do is placement. We also try to encourage young queers who have not completed school, or those who have not completed campus, and their parents are the ones who are taking care of things like their school fees, to be patient before they come out, so that they complete school, because completing school means that you can get placement. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it is an advantage towards your placement. And just like Pinky said, when you have a job, or you have income, then that also means that you can afford a decent neighborhood, and a decent neighborhood can minimize at least, if not 100%, but it can minimize a little bit of some of these homophobic attacks that someone in an undecent neighborhood maybe goes through. And then something else that I also wanted to say, don't forget, we also talk about like, for those of us who are queers, who are already existing in the systems, like I'm a civil servant, those of us who already exist in the system, we can't all graduates cannot come out and work in queer organizations. And we are trying to change the system from within, because you can only change a system that you understand. So we have some of these workplace discriminations, like the Teachers Code of Conduct and all that. We can only change these systems if we understand how the system is within. So we try to encourage our queers who are already working not to quit your job, but to find a way of surviving. So we call them coping mechanisms. Some of them is like, currently I'm wearing a very long dress, but when I'm out there somewhere else, I will not be dressed like this. I have to take that into consideration. I'm wearing a ponytail because that is what my jurisdiction, my job jurisdiction says. Just because I'm queer does not mean that I have to come to work, you know, looking however, because I need my job to survive. First of all, I chose teaching because I love teaching. And it's something, when it comes to mental health, my kids, they keep me sane. You know, there's a way that when you do a profession that you chose to do, it keeps you sane, regardless of what you earn. So we also talk about, when it comes, let's say you're a police officer, you're a medic, you're a lawyer, when you go to the workspace, we talk about don't be too open. So we talk about these coping mechanisms. Just dress. We have a masculine presenting persons who even some of them can wear trousers. It is allowed to wear trousers, but we also have those who their coping ways is by wearing skirts. So these are really helping, because when it comes to socio-economic empowerment, it's very important for queers to be able to be economically empowered, and progressing in your business, progressing at work, it helps a lot with that. So thank you very much. I would wish that we get at least engaged. We are a young organization, which is a year old, and we would wish that we get engaged so that we can give a bigger highlight of what we do. We have done podcasts, we have documentaries, that because in Kenya we don't have like any documentation that has published, yes.
Yes, thank you. However, I'm really running short on time. If you could share your profile on the chat, maybe everyone can interact with, so that we can move this conversation forward. I know time is very limited. We can take a whole day on this. And to add on to that, I've shared a Google Doc on the chat. Everyone can interact with. Please that up maybe that part too, we can be able to interact some more and create this spaces some more.
It's
to
14
have
hours.
Interact with that as we continue with the conversation. Yvonne, there's a question that you wish to address that's on Q&A. Please address that.
Yes, it's Carlisle and Nyambura has asked a question about how organizations are tasked with queer organizing, working to restructure and help. So I think, and you've given an example that, there's some people who can seek help when they don't think they deserve it. I think also so organizations, yes, do have different things and activities that they have within the organizations where they build the capacity of either their employees, or they have these training sessions that you could probably check and apply for, or check on their website whether they have like a webinar like this one. This one is building skills. It's not just a webinar. But I also think that organizations can't assume that you need help. So therefore you would have to really work on seeking that help, because I can't run an organization and assume Nyambura is sitting somewhere and they need help. That is a very, very, I think it's even wrong to assume that someone needs help if they've not asked you for it. I think, in another way we call it mansplaining, where someone is explaining to you how you should, anyway. So there are organizations that try to build people's skills, whether it's through farming, whether it's IT, whether it's project management. I think there's some, whether it's legal capacity. I think the organizations that work on that. Then there's anonymous attendee Melody, who has asked, what can private and non-government sectors do to leverage the LBQ Gen Z workforce in the country and expand and grow business? So I'm going to give one very simple example. And this is a very huge thing, not huge, but it's not at a macro level. But we have, for example, we've had meetings with the trade delegations from different countries, and we've insisted that when they're negotiating with the government, when they're negotiating the trade agreements with governments, that they should consider having policies in place that actually require LGBTQ businesses to be considered as trade partners. So for example, if there's some refugees who are doing this Maasai beads, that the United States government should consider that as a business and not just the heterosexual normative larger companies. So that's one of the ways in which I guess I advocate for more queer businesses to be considered in these larger spaces. Thank you.
Amazing. Now that you've talked about that, as we come into a conclusion on this, there is one person by the name Jody who has been able to utilize this research that I shared with you. From the chat, you can access the link to the research report. And maybe Jody, you can expand on how you've used this research as a tool to enhance your fundraising skills, for example, because as we are talking about queer organizations, we cannot separate from the fact that it's community that's involved in organizing. I think sometimes we forget that it's the community that's behind the organization. It's a few people from the community who have come together to organize. And I really, really wish for people to interact with this research as we continue with these conversations, to be able to use it, one, as a tool for fundraising, as a tool to be able to equip themselves. And of course, in various locations, in Kisii, in Kisumu, we have this report out there, right? How can we use it to enhance ourselves as organizers and still as individuals? Jody, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Melody. My name is Jody. I'm the Executive Director of ICF Foundation. We are a climate justice organization based in Mombasa, and we work on issues of climate change, where we also focus very keenly on issues of the livelihood and economic development of LGBTQ women. So I just have a few recommendations of how we can use this report to, further the LGBTQ GNC economic justice in Kenya, and this can go to LGBTQ organizations that are here and any other individuals that are interested in, furthering the LGBTQ GNC economic justice in Kenya. And so the first important thing to do is to understand the research report, where we can begin by, thoroughly reviewing the research report to familiarize ourselves with the key findings, the methodologies that were used and the recommendations, as we also pay attention to the specific uses and challenges faced, specific issues and challenges that are faced by LGBTQ individuals in the Kenya's economic landscape. I hope most of us have done this, and for those who have not, please, I encourage you to go back and really, really look at the report to be able to understand everything that is in it. The second thing would be to use this report as a tool to raise awareness about LGBTQ GNC economic justice among various stakeholders, including policymakers, civil society organizations, human rights advocates, and even the general public. We've heard about how LGBTQ GNC persons are facing so many economic injustices, and so we can also use it as a, to advocate for policy changes by engaging, policymakers and other government officials to advocate for policies that will address these issues, these injustices that are faced by the LGBTQ GNC individuals. We can use this research report, as an evidence of the need for specific reforms, such as the anti-discrimination laws that we've talked about, about inclusive employment policies and even targeted economic empowerment programs that that we can think of. Another thing is that there can be a collaboration among LGBTQ organizations beyond the consortium and other human rights organizations and other advocacy groups, where we can form a collective voice for economic justice and use the report to develop joint campaigns beyond this webinar. And we can also use this research report to mobilize resources, just like Melody mentioned. I used it the first day it came out. I read it and I was like, I need to implement this, because our organization also deals with issues of economic empowerment. So we can use this report as an evidence also to mobilize resources from donors and other philanthropic organizations to implement recommendations that are provided in the report for LGBTQ organizations. Lastly, it is our duty to continuously monitor the progress that will be made in addressing the LGBTQ GNC economic injustice, and evaluate the impact of interventions and any policies that shall have been made by assessing whether the recommendations put forth in the research are being implemented effectively and whether they are resulting in meaningful improvements in economic justice for LGBTQ persons. So just to finish, I would like to say a big thank you to everyone who participated and made sure that this report is out, the consortium and everyone who contributed whatever they said or any resources that were put into this. Asanteni sana.
Amazing, thank you. As we come into a conclusion, I will allow one more question and then we can go into conclusion. I see Sela Babu has shared their profile on the chat. Maybe everyone can interact with that. Also, I've shared that post webinar Google Doc. Please interact with it as we get the final conclusion on this. Scarlett, you had your hand up. Sorry, I didn't see that in due time. And thank you, Judy, for sharing. I hope we utilize this research in general.
Hi, my name is Scarlett. Not really a question. I'm really loving the session, and maybe just to acknowledge the implementation that have been working, especially when it comes to economic empowerment. There are some organizations like Pema Kenya who have been doing tailoring, soap making, and also maybe we can use that as organizations and try to see that everyone, is economically empowered. Another thing, it's a takeaway home. I always tell people, being self-aware is really important. And I like that one of the panelists mentioned about self-awareness. When you're self-aware, it's very easy for you to live your life. You don't have to be validated, or you don't have to like the teacher said, I don't have to wear how I wear because I need the job, So if you know who you are, your clothes or what people perceive of you doesn't really bother you. You go on with your life, and it also impacts your mental health. So that is what I wanted to say. And yeah, thank you. I've really loved this session. Back to you, Melody.
Thank you. That's amazing to hear. So let's conclude this. I know we have more questions, and I'm sorry. Maybe you can ask the questions on our social media, and I will be giving you the linkage and the links to your questions. For example, if it's addressed to Yvonne, I'm sure they can address some however we can, because time is limited. We start with Yvonne, your final comments.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, INEND, for organizing this webinar. It's been a great learning process. I think just encourage everyone to take up opportunities when they're sent. I know that there's a lot of imposter syndrome. I have conducted research and I've heard firsthand from people that there's a fear in applying for some of these things, either because of rejection or because you feel you're not up to par. But for example, when a recruiter is looking at CVs, sometimes you don't have to qualify, you don't have to tick all the boxes that they want. You can qualify for some and they can place you in something else. So just take up some of these opportunities, but also consider the experiences that everyone here has spoken about, and see what fits for you. See what, I always say I hate giving advice. So you see what fits for you from the experiences that other people have relayed here. Yeah, so thank you very much, Melody. This was a very good webinar. I have learned a lot.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, thank you, Melody. I've seen webinars that really drag. Before 1 hour, you won't have the same participants that you started with. But this one, we've maintained the number, and we would even want to continue. So this means that it's been very interactive. Having said that, for LGBTQ and GNC persons to access economic justice, we need to prioritize on building
Is it my network or I've lost Nancy?
You've lost
I can't hear her too. I was like, hey, what's happening?
All right.
I think it's
You can go ahead.
us because I think I can hear you, Melody.
All right, thank you. Bosibori, maybe you can go ahead. Final comments.
I was not volunteering for you to put me on the spot.
Everybody's frozen.
Oh, Karen is back. Let her finish first.
Karen, finish up your sentiments. We lost you
I
for a
can see
while.
my internet connection is very unstable. I don't know why. Maybe they have gone for lunch. Now, I was just saying that for us to access
Maybe.
economic
You can
justice,
disable the video.
am I still there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I'll try to rush. I think my internet is going. So one of the things that we need to do to access economic justice is we need to become economically empowered. And this means we need to build economic empowerment that focuses on education, skills development, and entrepreneurship. So we need to acquire marketable skills. We need to seek opportunities for vocational training or even higher education, as well as explore entrepreneurship as a means of creating sustainable livelihoods. Another aspect that we need to look into going forward is financial literacy, which is very crucial to LGBTQ individuals so that they can navigate the financial landscape effectively. And this means understanding basic financial concepts such as budgeting, saving, managing debt, and also having knowledge to make informed decisions that they can use to access financial services. And thanks to the consortium because you've started the conversation through training and capacity building empowerment for LGBTQ persons. And I pray that you get more funding so that you can escalate or scale up the trainings to reach as many people as you can. Another important aspect that is very important for LGBTQ, especially for their economic empowerment, is networking and mentorship. That is a given. You don't even need to have a physical mentor. You just need to go to the social media, LinkedIn, and look for somebody that you admire and you want to copy from and ask them to be your mentor and let them, they'll always agree. So reach out and look for mentors that can help you connect with supporting organizations that can provide guidance and offer professional and entrepreneurship opportunities. And then building resilience is also another factor towards accessing economic justice. And this can be achieved by, you have to face challenges that you encounter and develop strategies to overcome discrimination, stigma, and economic barriers so that you can navigate the setbacks that and persevere in pursuing your goals and adapt to changing circumstances. And just like it's been said, also engaging in collective advocacy. Let us not be an island. Organizations should just come together and work together. And even individuals who are not part of these organizations, LGBTQI organizations, let's encourage them to join agencies or form their own so that they can access some of the essential services that you can only access when you are in a collective environment instead of when you are an individual. And this will maybe help to address systemic barriers and promote economic justice also. And finally, self-care and well-being. Let's just look at our self-care and which is very critical so that we can focus on pursuing our economic activities. Because if your mental health is not in a good shape, you won't focus on making money. You won't focus on work. You won't, even if you are employed, you won't perform. So mental health is very important so that you can focus on building your economic blocks so that you can finally have that financial freedom. And then finally, let us just access as much resources as possible. Let us understand our legal rights. Let's access available resources and also even the government programs that exist for individuals. Just like Pinky said, let's not flaunt our sexuality. Sexuality is secondary. You are an individual first and you have all the rights as described or as prescribed in the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4. So you have all the rights, and the Constitution is a supreme document than any other law, than even the Penal Code 162. So let us know our rights so that we can be well informed. Thank you so much, Melody.
Amazing. Hashtag know your rights. Georgina?
Okay, thank you so much. Happy to be part of the consortium, Voices of Our Voices Count, and having been part of this research. My first and my parting shot would be, let us have that self, let us just have that self ability of accepting who we are as a person first, before we engage more. Let us be self-reliant on ourselves and understand the well-being of you as a person before going out there. And then the aspect that also Corinne has talked about, let us also ensure when we are doing this, our mental health is part and parcel of what we are working on. And also, as Pinky said, let us not flaunt our sexuality. That is just a part of you. You are a Kenyan. You are a citizen. And I think people voted. People went to vote. People have been voting. Even the new constitution, people voted. So why should you be afraid? Because most of the organizations that we have that are registered, the LBQ, GNC organizations, are either registered as women as CBOs or as youth groups. CBOs under women or CBOs under youth groups. So we have government funding like the Women Enterprise Fund. We have the Youth Fund. We have the NGAP that is being given by women representatives. Why don't we go for this? Because in that aspect, you are a group of women or you are a youth group. You just go and get this funding. Those are the other things. What they need is your registration, which is done in Kenya. Your bank account, if it is there. If you've been doing merry-go-round, there is evidence for that. And then whatever you want to do, so that it can also uplift you as organizations, uplift the lives of members, as organizations do fundraising for other programs. So I feel, let us believe in ourselves individually first before we go to the wider space, because it is you who will drive that wheel of empowering yourself economically. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for your sentiments, and I hope these conversations continue. On the report, we had recommendations, of course, for the government, as I said earlier, for the government, for the financial institutions, and for
We have a parting shot. Thank you.
Oh, Pinky, sorry. I forgot. I thought you talked when Nancy went off. Please.
No, I didn't. That time when I wanted to speak, she came back. So I was like, I'm gonna give her 15 minutes of fame. Hi, Nancy. Anyway, so my few points are first of all, I have learned a lot. I have a pencil here, so I've scribbled a whole lot of notes over here, a lot of learnings, a lot of teachings, everything. And I think that is the first point. Like, we should allow ourselves to learn. Like, I always go to side. There's no one who knows everything. Like, you have to allow yourself to be teachable. There's no day in life where you get to a point and you feel like you know everything. However old you are, however learned you are, you have to allow yourself to be teachable. So I am grateful because this space has made me learn so much stuff from people, from my peers, from my colleagues, and from Yvonne, of course. I have learned so much. So this are going to impact on my life and my community and my organization. So that is a big thing. I'm just gonna go back to Yvonne's point about, when they are called for applications and then you just look at that application and you're like, I'm not even gonna attempt it because I don't think I foot like a fit or I'll foot the bill. The thing is, most of the times employers look for people for a reason. There are skills that are teachable and there are some that are not, So the thing is, sometimes whatever someone is looking for is the thing that they cannot teach you. But if you have it, they are good to go. Because, for example, in our queer workspaces, we know very well, there are many times you have to choose between, I always call it loyalty or expertise. You always think like, do I take someone who is part of the community or someone who has the expertise to do the job, but they do not understand the community? So at the end of the day, whichever decision you make has an impact. And most times, a lot of organizations will go with someone who is part of the community because they've walked the journey. So that's what I'm saying. The skills that you may have, you think you don't have them, but you do, because you don't know what the employer or whoever is making that call is looking for. So just give yourself a chance. Like, don't give up before you try. Try and keep trying and trying and trying. Don't give up, because I know it's hard sometimes to just give up and go home, but give it a chance. Try this time. Another thing is, if you cannot find those opportunities, create them. Yeah, whatever small business you can start and employ 2 people or 3 people or 1 person, create that opportunity for someone else. If you can't find those opportunities, that's what we're saying here as a collective, as the community, as the LBQ GNC community. Let's create those opportunities for ourselves and for our people. If they are not giving us a seat at the table, let's bring our whole team. So that also applies to us as individuals. Like, let's find that opportunity, that small opportunity, do that business, do whatever it takes that you can do. And the last thing is, I still insist on that collective learning team. Let's create the resources, let's share our learnings and whatever else that we do. For example, if we decide today we are gonna create a directory of all the places that people can get funding, and we collectively come together and do that, because if me I do it in Kisii, it's not gonna help you, Melody, in Mombasa, or Yvonne, I don't know where you stay right now, but anyway, Georgina in Kisumu, it's not gonna help them, So, but if I bring mine and you bring yours, and Yvonne brings theirs, and Karen brings theirs, and we put it together, then it impacts a whole lot of Kenyans, and our population is covered. So that whole community thing, like if we do our sharing and learning together and creating resources together, and whatever we do and we learn from, we share with each other, we are going to go very, very far. Thank you very much. This has been a very productive session for me.
Amazing. Thank you all. I had commented on the recommendations that the research has fronted, and I hope you interact with the document, because as we realized, there's not so much data, and I'm glad this research, together with Open for Business, being the larger LGBTQ inclusion in economic conversations, that we have started this conversation, and it's an eye opener for us all as we continue to interact in these spaces and participate not only in our own area as we are advocating, but also realize that as most of the panelists have said, plugging in the larger community and in the larger societal talks, for example, the finance bill. I mean, if we interact and because what the larger society, I know these sentiments have been brought about by most of the panelists, is they only view us as sex beings, right? So how about we try and we strive to be not only on the side of sex too. I mean, we need this money to exist. We are existing in this society as voters, yes? This finance bill, it doesn't only affect those who voted, it affects us too. plugging into these conversations is part of it, and actually empowering ourselves, starting from personal budgeting when it comes to these things, to enable us gain financial freedom. As you said, that's the goal, right? And to be economically empowered. With those sentiments, thank you all for joining us. We've come into a conclusion. I know I said that like 28 minutes ago, but this is it. We'll continue with the conversation. Please, I hope you've interacted with the document that I've shared. If not, please go and interact with it to give us the feedback. And thank you all for joining us. That is all. And have a lovely afternoon and evening.
Thank you to Melody and the rest of the people. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, and bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, Damaris, too, for being our sign interpreter. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.